I'm Dana Sullivan, 34, a financial officer and the Unpaid Family Bank. This past Christmas, my dad, Robert, gathered everyone in the living room and, looking solemn, announced, "We all agreed not to do gifts this year. Just family and food." I nodded, relieved, believing the shared sacrifice. That relief lasted 3 seconds. My sister, Leah, the 30-year-old lifestyle influencer, walked in. My mom, Maria, immediately handed her a huge, gift-wrapped box. Did I confront them? Did I start a screaming match? No. I had a much more destructive plan that only a financial officer could execute. What did I do the moment I walked out the door? I'm a financial officer by day, which means I'm good with money. Unfortunately, for years, my expertise was exploited. I wasn't their daughter, I was the family bank. They relied on me for every little thing, from paying Mom's Hulu subscription to bailing out Leah's credit card overages. I didn't mind helping with real emergencies, but this was dependency disguised as love. I handled the water bills, Spotify, Netflix, all on autopay from my account. I kept the peace by keeping the money flowing. The annual cost of keeping them afloat was huge, yet my financial contribution was always invisible. They took my money and ignored my existence. But how did this constant, silent financial sacrifice make the Christmas betrayal feel so much worse? Then there's Leah. The golden child, the marketing specialist who primarily marketed herself on Instagram. Her job was glitz, mine was spreadsheets. My parents treated her like a delicate ornament to be admired and protected, while I was the utility bill, only noticed when the payment was due. I remember one Thanksgiving when I quietly paid off the family's overdue property tax. Later that day, Dad publicly praised Leah for picking out the perfect centerpiece. That summed up the dynamic. My huge, critical contributions were ignored, while her minor, aesthetic gestures were celebrated. The constant financial sacrifice was bad enough. But to be lied to, directly and deliberately. About the no gifts rule, to protect Leah's special status and make me feel like a fool for believing them, that wasn't just favoritism. That was a calculated insult designed to maximize my humiliation. When a simple lie reveals years of disrespect, what's the only logical action left for a financial officer? It was time to audit the books, permanently. The sight of that $5,000 designer handbag was more than just a gift, it was a physical slap. It said, "Your financial contributions keep our lights on, but you don't even deserve a $5 token of recognition." The blatant double standard was the ultimate insult to my years of invisible service. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. The rage inside me was cold, efficient, and calculating, the very traits that made me a successful financial officer. I simply finished my glass of wine, placed it silently on the mantelpiece, and turned towards the door. No scene. No tears. Mom noticed my movement. "Dana? Where are you going? We haven't done dessert." I paused, turned, and gave her a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "I think I've seen enough gifts for one night. I have some urgent banking matters to attend to." The game was over. What does a financial officer do when they decide to audit their family's debt? I went straight home, logged in, and began the most ruthless, quiet financial cleanup the Sullivan family had ever faced. Driving home, the cold air hitting my face felt good. It cleared the sickly sweet stench of their hypocrisy. My mind wasn't filled with emotion, but with logistics. I wasn't driven by rage, I was driven by a financial audit that showed a clear imbalance. The assets, my support, far outweighed the liabilities, their respect. For years, I justified their exploitation. "It's family, Dana. They need you." But the $5,000 bag proved the opposite. They were comfortable abusing my goodwill. My quiet retaliation wasn't revenge, it was a business decision. I was simply cutting my losses and dissolving a non-performing subsidiary. My expertise wasn't in cooking or decorating. It was in financial control. I knew their vulnerabilities better than they did. I had a digital hit list ready in my head: autopay, credit cards, subscription services. All funded by the family bank. And tonight, the bank was closing its doors. What happens when a financial officer commits a quiet, digital act of war on Christmas night? The silence of my keyboard was about to be replaced by the sound of panic. I got home, didn't bother to turn on the tree lights. I went straight to my laptop. This wasn't personal, it was professional. My fingers flew across the keyboard. I logged into the joint credit card my parents used, the one I had opened to build their weak credit years ago. First, the high-interest debt I'd been subsidizing. I executed an immediate freeze and reduction of their credit limit to 0. Then, the death by 1,000 cuts: Spotify, Netflix, Hulu, the cloud storage for Leah's influencer content. I canceled every single one. No alerts. No warnings. My revenge was silence, precision, and the digital signature of a financial officer. There was no theatrical scene, just the quiet click of a mouse confirming irreversible changes. By midnight, the family bank was officially bankrupt, and I was finally free of its toxic debt. They went to sleep celebrating their perfect, gift-filled Christmas. I went to sleep knowing they would wake up to financial devastation. But what did the chaos look like when the sun rose? I worked quickly, efficiently, like closing out a failed client account. Tab 1. Robert and Maria's cell phone plan, cancelled. Tab 2. The utility payment for their house, stopped. I even cancelled the premium roadside assistance I paid for Leah's car, knowing she relied on it heavily. I went through my digital ledger. Every payment they had come to expect, every small comfort I had provided, now gone. I revoked access to the shared password manager. The final move: transferring all joint emergency savings back into my sole, private account. Clean. Complete. No paper trail leading back to me. In that silent, empty house, I finally felt the power of my profession. Not power over the markets, but power over my own life. They had been manipulating a daughter. They hadn't realized they were provoking a financial officer. That night, I reclaimed my autonomy one click at a time. The digital hit was clean, but family always finds a way to escalate. When the financial reality hit them on Christmas morning, how did the Sullivan family react to their bank going offline? Christmas morning. The air in my apartment was quiet, unlike the forced cheer at my parents' house. I made coffee and sat by the window. I had left no note, no dramatic text message, only the digital reality of their financial cutoff. My absence, combined with their suddenly non-functioning accounts, was the only statement they needed. They were probably still sleeping off their Christmas celebration, but soon the panic would start. I knew the sequence: first, the failed Spotify login, then, the credit card decline at the gas pump, finally, the notice about the unpaid phone bill. This quiet morning was the calm before their financial storm. I realized that years of begging them for respect never worked. But one night of decisive action, 1 hour of digital no, achieved total separation. My financial independence wasn't just my safety net, it was my weapon. I waited for the inevitable. I waited for the phone to start ringing. What was the first sign of their collapse, and how did they try to shift the blame from their own dependence to me? Get ready for the 29 missed calls. It was 8:30 a.m. on Christmas morning, and the silence broke. My phone, which I had placed face down, began to vibrate relentlessly. The first call was from Mom. I let it ring. 2 minutes later, Dad called. Then Leah. They weren't calling to wish me a Merry Christmas. The text messages started pouring in, frantic, demanding, accusatory. Leah couldn't stream her favorite show, Hulu was cut. Dad's work phone was disconnected, the bill had bounced. Mom's credit card was declined at the Christmas market, humiliating her. The dominoes I had set up were falling fast. Their messages weren't asking what happened, but why I did this. They immediately skipped problem solving and went straight to blame. I was the cruel, selfish daughter who ruined Christmas. Not them, the adults who relied entirely on their daughter's paycheck for basic utilities and entertainment. I watched the count climb. 10 missed calls. 15, then 20. Eventually, I took a screenshot of the lock screen, 29 missed calls and dozens of angry texts. That screenshot was my trophy. It quantified, definitively, the level of their dependence and their absolute panic when the well ran dry. Their desperation was palpable, but how far would they go to escape the blame? The next move was a shock, even for me. They brought the police to my doorstep. Back in my apartment, Christmas was officially over. This was purely business. I started with the most critical, the family's shared utilities card. I logged in and reported it lost. This wasn't just a cancellation, it locked them out instantly, forcing them to wait days for a replacement that would never be activated. Next, their phone service, which I'd been paying for years to ensure Dad's critical business calls were never interrupted. Cancelled. Then, the 2 separate PayPal accounts I used for Leah's emergency funds, which were always for frivolous spending. I shut them down. No transfers. No refunds. This part was almost satisfyingly petty. I went through the entire list of streaming and subscription services: Netflix, HBO, the premium news site Dad used, even the ridiculous personalized wine club I paid for Mom. All automatic payments disabled. The silence in my apartment contrasted perfectly with the digital destruction I was executing. My last action was a simple transfer, pulling the remaining $1,500 I had set aside for their future emergency repairs back into my high-yield savings account. That money was now Dana's future repair fund. I closed the laptop, my hands steady. The bank was closed. Permanently. The financial hit was delivered in silence, but their response was loud. How long did it take the Sullivan family to realize their bank was gone? And what was the most shocking accusation in the flood of calls that followed? I was savoring my coffee, enjoying the silence, when the screen lit up like a Christmas tree on fire. The tally quickly hit 29 missed calls. Leah's messages were all caps: "I can't stream. Did you steal my gift card funds? Fix this now." Moms were mournful: "It's Christmas, Dana. You're breaking your father's heart." The chaos wasn't just about Netflix. Dad needed to use the utilities card to buy something urgent for work, and it was declined. His business phone, which I canceled the night before, stopped receiving calls mid-morning. They hadn't just lost their streaming, they had lost their critical infrastructure. They couldn't admit their decade-long reliance on me. So, they created a narrative. I was not setting a boundary. I was committing financial sabotage. They needed me to break and reverse the damage immediately. I felt no obligation. I put the phone on silent and continued my peaceful, debt-free morning. I knew the panic was only just beginning. When basic services and credit lines fail, people resort to drastic measures. The messages became threats. Then, the calls stopped abruptly. I looked out the window, expecting to see Dad's car. Instead, I saw flashing blue and red lights pulling up outside my building. What did Leah tell the police to make them show up at my door, and how did I, the financial officer, calmly explain the legal truth behind my revenge? I opened my door to 2 uniformed officers. My heart hammered, but my face remained professionally neutral. "Ms. Sullivan? We received a report of financial irregularity and possible theft involving your family's accounts." Leah, of course, had lied and reported me for fraud or theft to get the money restored instantly. I invited them in and sat them down. This wasn't a family drama anymore, it was a legal discussion, and I was fully prepared. "Officers, I am a financial officer. All the accounts in question were either solely owned by me, or I was the primary authorized user funding them. No laws were broken, merely a long overdue financial restructuring, I calmly pulled out the detailed bank statements. I showed them the years of auto payments from my sole account and the joint account closure notice. As the sole contributor to these services and the primary cardholder, I simply exercised my legal right to withdraw my financial support. There is no theft, only a realization of their dependency. The officers exchanged a look. They understood immediately. They thanked me for my transparency and told me to be careful, as my family might continue to harass me. They left. My family's ultimate escalation, turning a boundary into a police matter, had failed spectacularly. The police were gone, but the family still hadn't grasped the consequences of their dependency. What happened when they realized the financial cleanup was permanent? And how did I find peace after the storm? After the police left, I didn't break down or celebrate. I simply felt confirmed. My professional knowledge had protected me from their panic-fueled accusations. I had faced their worst attempt at manipulation and won by adhering strictly to facts and the law. The phone rang again, this time, my father. I finally answered. His voice was laced with anger and fear. "You're trying to ruin us. Reverse this now." I cut him off, my voice steady. "Robert, I am not your bank. I have legally and permanently severed all financial ties. This is not a negotiation. It's a boundary." He tried to argue, to deploy the old guilt trips, but I was done. "You chose the $5,000 purse over acknowledging my years of sacrifice. You showed me my value. I am simply acting on that valuation." I hung up before he could respond, then blocked all three of them, Dad, Mom, and Leah, from every platform. The battle was won, but the war for my freedom was just beginning. What did I do with all the money and energy I saved, and how did I finally redefine peace in my life? Blocking them was the final, satisfying click. The world didn't end, it became peaceful. The only information I received about their subsequent panic came through mutual, distant relatives who called, trying to play peacemaker. They painted me as the villain, but their reports confirmed the extent of the chaos. Leah's reaction was textbook golden child. She couldn't understand why the $5,000 handbag couldn't buy gas. She tried to return it, but they denied her without the original receipt, which Mom was probably hoarding. Her influencer schedule fell apart because she couldn't pay for premium Wi-Fi for her uploads. Dad, the man who prided himself on his business acumen, suddenly faced real bills. The utilities were threatening disconnection. He tried opening a new credit card, but his terrible credit score, which I had spent years mitigating, resulted in an immediate rejection. He had to face his own financial reality without my bailout. Their continued panic simply confirmed my decision. They weren't fighting for reconciliation, they were fighting for the return of their bank. That was the core of our relationship. Now that the bank was gone, they had no reason to call. The silence that followed was not lonely. It was victory. The phone was silent, and the debt was gone. But what did I do with my newfound financial freedom, and how did my life truly change after I quit being the family bank? The days following Christmas were the quietest I'd had in a decade. No calls asking for money, no texts demanding bill payments, no obligation to mediate Leah's latest spending crisis. The silence wasn't isolation, it was liberation. I realized how much emotional energy I had spent just maintaining their instability. I wasn't just financially richer, I was richer in self-respect. They had defined my worth by my balance sheet. By cutting them off, I redefined my own value, not as a resource, but as a person with boundaries. The revenge wasn't the freezing of accounts, it was the reclaiming of my sanity. I calculated the average annual amount I used to spend bailing them out, nearly $15,000. That money now went straight into my brokerage account. I wasn't buying a $5,000 purse, I was buying freedom. I even treated myself to a nice weekend trip, paid for with the money I usually reserved for Dad's insurance premium. I knew they would try to reach out again, to guilt trip me through friends, but I was untouchable. The legal clarity of my actions and the profound peace of my new life provided an impenetrable shield. There were no regrets, only the quiet, professional satisfaction of a perfectly executed, long overdue audit. The family story ended with a bang, but my new life began with a calm, steady investment. Did I ever hear from them again? And did they ever finally take responsibility for their own bills? The answer might surprise you. Leah, the golden child, was the first to fully lose it. Her meltdown wasn't about missing me, it was about the immediate, tangible loss of her lifestyle. Her first text was pure entitlement, "How dare you? My followers expect a new vlog. You are sabotaging my career because you're jealous of my $5,000 bag." I heard through Mom that Leah had thrown a fit when the high-speed Wi-Fi I paid for stopped working. She literally couldn't function. Her work was 100% dependent on my premium subscription. She tried to pay the bill herself but realized she had no idea how the account worked, or even what the password was. The next messages were attempts at emotional blackmail. She threatened to tell people I had stolen the money she earned, meaning the money I gave her. I replied, just once, before blocking her, "Leah, I am not your maid, your bank, or your audience. Get a job that pays for its own Wi-Fi." When the text stopped, I knew the reality had sunk in. Her frantic, self-absorbed communication was a testament to her utter financial dependence. She wasn't just inconvenienced, her entire professional facade was crumbling because I, the invisible utility bill, had simply chosen to stop paying. Leah's immediate breakdown was gratifying, but what about the long-term damage to their family business? The next holiday brought a true testament to the finality of my revenge. Keep watching to see the ultimate financial devastation. Dad finally got through using a blocked number. His voice was a blend of parental authority and absolute panic. "Dana, this stops now. We're your family. You're jeopardizing your mother's health and my business reputation. You need to restore the card and the phone plan immediately." I let him finish, then I spoke, slowly and clearly. "Robert, let me explain this as your former financial officer. You chose to fund a $5,000 luxury item while telling me to contribute to a no-gifts holiday. That is fraud." I responded by dissolving the partnership. "That is not spite, it's risk mitigation." He tried to pull rank. "We raised you. You owe us." I countered instantly. "I owe you nothing but respect. And that was lost when you prioritized Leah's vanity over my years of sacrifice. You are adults. You are financially literate. You are now solely responsible for your $1,500 monthly lifestyle deficit. If you or Mom call again demanding money, I will change my number and move. If you send Leah, I will get a restraining order. This is the last conversation we will have about money. Get a job. Pay your own bills. My bank is closed. Goodbye." I waited 3 seconds, then hung up. The cold clarity of my action was final. The phone line was dead, and the relationship was over. But what price did my family ultimately pay for demanding the $5,000 handbag? And how did my own life finally begin to flourish without their debt? The officers were polite but firm. Leah had claimed I committed identity theft and unauthorized account access. I let them state the charges without interruption. They were looking for panic. They found a highly articulate financial professional who had anticipated their move and was ready with documents. I calmly handed over a folder. "Officers, here is the original signed joint account agreement, clearly stating my right as the primary cardholder. Here are 2 years of statements proving I was the sole funding source. And here is the confirmation that my credit limit reduction and service cancellations were all done legally. My family reported me because they viewed my support as an obligation, not a courtesy. When I stopped funding their lifestyle, my property, legally, they panicked. They are misrepresenting a legal withdrawal of services as a crime to restore their lost income stream. I urge you to look at the money flow, not their hysteria." The senior officer closed the folder, his expression shifting from skeptical to annoyed at my family. He apologized for the interruption and advised me to legally notify my family of my boundary in writing, just for documentation. The police left, not with me in custody, but with a warning for my family. Ultimate checkmate. The police were no longer an issue, but the financial wreckage remained. What happened when my parents, faced with a mountain of overdue bills, realized their golden child, Leah, was financially useless? The officer's suggestion, to put the boundary in writing, was a gift. I immediately drafted a short, legally precise letter. It wasn't emotional. It stated the final closure of all financial support, cited the date the accounts were severed, and explicitly warned against further harassment or false reporting. This document wasn't a plea for respect, it was a unilateral declaration of independence. I sent it via certified mail, ensuring they had signed proof of receipt. Then came the final, satisfying administrative tasks, changing my phone number, updating my email recovery details, and deleting all their contacts. That night, I slept truly soundly for the first time in years. The feeling was profound. The emotional and financial weight of my entire family was finally lifted. I wasn't cold, I was protected. I hadn't lost my family, I had simply stopped sacrificing myself for their dysfunction. With the legal and digital doors firmly shut, what was the first, glorious thing I bought for myself with the money I saved? And what was the ultimate, satisfying update I received about Leah's $5,000 handbag? Looking back, the $5,000 purse was just a symbol. The true cost wasn't the money I lost, but the time and stress I spent subsidizing their choice to remain children. Every canceled account, every ignored call was a step toward recovery, not just for my bank balance, but for my mental health. I realized my revenge wasn't motivated by spite. It was a desperate act of self-preservation. I wasn't the villain, I was the accountant shutting down a fraudulent operation. The respect they denied me was finally earned, not from them, but from myself. That inner validation was priceless. My computer screen showed the actual result, a financial graph trending sharply upwards. That line wasn't just my portfolio growing. It was my future expanding. The $15,000 I saved annually was no longer a bailout fund, but the down payment on the life I actually wanted. My story is a warning. Dependency is a debt that will always demand repayment. But if you're stuck as the family bank, what is the very first step you can take today to start your own financial audit and find your freedom? Life after being the family bank was startlingly quiet. That noise I'd always lived with, the constant underlying anxiety of their next financial emergency, was gone. I found I had mental space I didn't know existed. I started reading for pleasure again. I slept through the night. The money I saved wasn't just sitting there. I used a portion of the annual $15,000 to finally take a course in financial modeling I'd postponed for years. I invested in my career, not their debts. My focus at work sharpened. I received a significant promotion 6 months later. My growth was exponential. My ultimate goal wasn't revenge, it was the purchase of my own home. Exactly 1 year after that disastrous Christmas, I closed on my condo. It was small, but every square foot was mine, bought with money not stained by their manipulation. This house wasn't just a dwelling, it was the symbol of my complete financial liberation. I was free and successful, but what about the rest of the Sullivan family? Did their financial reckoning finally force them to change, or did the cycle of dependency continue to destroy them? Imagine reclaiming an entire wing of your brain. That's what happened when I cut the cord. I was no longer distracted by Dad's credit warnings or Leah's petty demands. My focus at the bank became laser-sharp. I was known for being calm under pressure, but now, the pressure was all external, and my decisions were purely strategic. I utilized the time I saved, roughly 2 hours a day on family drama, to spearhead a new market analysis project. 6 months after the Christmas cutoff, I was called into the CEO's office. I didn't get a purse, I got a senior financial analyst title and a $20,000 raise. That promotion felt like the true revenge. My confidence wasn't just about the money. It was about realizing my own capacity when unburdened. The irony? My family thought I was destroying my life. In reality, I was building a fortress. My success was a direct result of their failure to respect me as an independent adult. I was thriving, but what about the family I left behind? Did they finally have to downsize their entitled lifestyle? And what happened to Leah's beloved $5,000 handbag when the bills came due? I had blocked my core family, but I kept an open channel to my Aunt Patricia. She was the family truth teller, rarely involved in the financial mess. We met at a quiet coffee shop, and the first few minutes were tense. I needed to know if she was a true ally or just another messenger. She didn't waste time on platitudes. "Dana, what you did was harsh, but necessary. Your parents used you as a third income stream and called it love. They never respected you." Hearing that validation from a non-dependent relative was the emotional healing I truly needed. It confirmed my sanity, not just my legal standing. She provided the update I knew I wouldn't get directly. Dad had to take on a second menial job. Leah was furious and blamed Mom for the lost $5,000 purse, which was gone, denied a refund. Mom was constantly calling Patricia, complaining that my revenge was destroying Christmas. I then made my terms clear to Patricia. "I value our relationship, but I will not be used as a source of information or reconciliation. If they try to communicate through you, I will block you too. My life is private now. I'm only interested in discussing our lives, not their bills." Patricia agreed completely. Our continued connection was based on mutual respect and the understanding that my personal boundary was absolute. We successfully navigated the holiday season without drama. She gave me a gift, not a purse, but a rare first edition book. It was an affirmation of a healthier kind of family. My peace was secured, and the family chaos was confirmed. But what was the ultimate, final act of their downfall, and how did I react when I saw my parents' house for the last time? I often look out at the city lights from my new home. It's quiet here. The noise of my old life, the constant financial firefighting, is long gone. The $5,000 purse incident didn't destroy my family, it destroyed the illusion that we were a family in the first place. If you take one thing from my story, let it be this. Lesson 1. Boundaries are the physical manifestation of self-respect, not cruelty. My family called my actions heartless. I called them necessary. Setting that boundary was the most loving thing I could do for myself. I spent years believing I couldn't cut them off because of the sunk cost fallacy. I had already invested so much time and money that walking away felt like a loss. That's how emotional manipulation works. The truth is, walking away was the ultimate investment in my future happiness. Think about who calls you and why. Lesson 2. Dependency is a financial transaction dressed up as love. When the money ran out, the calls stopped. That silence was the clearest evidence I needed that our connection was transactional, not emotional. Know the difference. My job as a financial officer wasn't just my career, it became my shield. I didn't fight them with emotion, I fought them with legal documents, logic, and cold financial facts. My professional detachment made me untouchable, even by law enforcement. I learned that my ability to say no was directly tied to my bank account. Lesson 3. Financial independence is not just about wealth, it is the prerequisite for true emotional freedom. When you rely on them, they control you. When you rely only on yourself, you are free. This is a practical tip for anyone in a similar situation. Document everything. I had years of statements proving my sole contributions. That paper trail saved me from a potential fraud accusation. Always keep your financials separate and your paperwork immaculate. For too long, I internalized the idea that putting myself first was selfish. I was wrong. Lesson 4. It is not selfish to prioritize your stability and future over the comfort of others. My promotion, my condo, my peace, they all exist because I chose Dana first. People watch these stories for the revenge. My revenge wasn't the freezing of the accounts. It was the fact that while they were fighting over a utility bill, I was closing on a mortgage. My success, my growth, and my peace, that was the ultimate, sustainable revenge. Finally, Lesson 5, recovery from family trauma is a long, active process, not a single event. Cutting the cord was the start, but healing came from building a life so full and self-respecting that their drama became irrelevant. The lessons are clear, but what became of the Sullivan family after the money finally ran out? Did the $5,000 purse end up in a pawn shop, and what does the final, permanent silence truly feel like? Now, let's talk about the moral of this story, because it's not about the money. It's about agency. Maybe you're the Dana in your family, constantly sacrificing your growth for their comfort. I know that guilt. I know the feeling of being the default solution to every problem. I want you to understand that the narrative of family obligation is often weaponized by those who refuse to grow up. My parents convinced me that my professional success was their safety net, not my personal achievement. That myth kept me paralyzed for over a decade. Don't let their fear define your life. The most effective tool in my entire financial audit wasn't the bank statement, it was the word no. Learn to say it without justifying yourself. You don't owe them a detailed explanation of your budget or your decision. Your refusal is a complete sentence. Period. People ask me if I regret the revenge. I say I regret nothing. True revenge isn't about their suffering, it's about your thriving. My closure was buying my condo and earning my promotion. Their loss was the catalyst for my gain. Frame your actions as self-preservation, not malice. For those of you still tethered, start today. Write down every single cent you spend on them annually. See the number. Now imagine that money is a down payment on your freedom. You have the power to close the family bank. It's frightening. But the peace on the other side is absolute. I've told you how to get your freedom, but for those who need a final push, do you want to know the exact one-year update on my family's financial meltdown, including the fate of Leah's $5,000 handbag? Stay tuned for the postscript. If my story proves anything, it's that self-respect is the most valuable currency. You don't get respect by sacrificing yourself, you get it by asserting your worth. I finally realized that my life was my balance sheet, and my family was a liability I had to write off for my long-term solvency. I know this topic is heavy. If you're dealing with financial manipulation, you are not alone. There is an entire community that understands the silent, suffocating burden of being the financially responsible one in a dysfunctional system. Share your story below, and let's support each other in setting those hard, but necessary, boundaries. For those ready to start their own financial audit, I've linked a free template below. Your first step isn't confronting them, it's gathering data. Get clear on exactly how much they cost you annually. Knowledge is power. Seeing the number in black and white is often the push you need. If my story resonated, and you want more videos on financial independence, family boundaries, and reclaiming your life, hit that like button. Subscribe and ring the notification bell. That helps me reach more people who need to hear this message of liberation. Every click is a vote for your freedom. Don't ever trade your future for someone else's comfort. Don't trade your peace for their convenience. The greatest revenge is simply being happy, successful, and financially whole without them. Be the CEO of your own life and fire the clients that don't pay. The choice is yours. Will you audit your life, or will you continue to pay the price? If you need that final, shocking confirmation that you made the right decision, check out the bonus clip where I reveal exactly how much my family lost 1 year later.